All right, so our next speaker, Dr. Prabhat Chand, is a professor of psychiatry, an addiction psychiatrist at the Center for Addiction Medicine, NIMHANS, and chief of the NIMHANS Digital Academy in Bangalore, India. He completed his MD in psychiatry from Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh. He also completed the Diplomat of National Board Psychiatry from the National Board of Examination, New Delhi. He's a fellow of Indo-US Public Health in Telehealth for Addiction at ECHO Institute at the University of New Mexico Health Science Center. And he is the founder of Virtual Knowledge Network, VKN ECHO. So the mission of VKN ECHO is to build a knowledge network to provide access to health professionals to the best and most up-to-date knowledge, wisdom, and skills in the area of addiction, mental health, by leveraging digital technology. He has more than 80 publications in national and international journals, and is actively involved in clinical patient care, academics, and research. Welcome, Dr. Chand. Excited to hear you speak.
Okay. Thank you, Mona, and thanks all the co-speakers. Thanks the audience, across the world who joined. I was looking today morning. So Eventbrite has around 140 audiences. I mean, one of the learning in the whole year is that getting audience is more difficult than getting speakers nowadays with COVID-19 having everywhere. So thank you very much. Thanks, I think, McLean. On coincidence, I found out that McLean is like NIMHANS. NIMHANS started as a mental asylum in 1800, sometimes in 1800. And I Googled McLean. I have never been to McLean. And I found same similar structure. Also, I found that NIMHANS, being a mental asylum and now become institute, it has a lot of greeneries. In Bangalore, you don't get greeneries. It's IT city. All back-end work happens here. So we still have pavilion, still have cottages, and I could see in McLean there's some cottage road in the Google map. So it looks like McLean and NIMHANS are similar psychiatric asylums developed into a research institutes. Thanks a lot. Let me go to the next slide. Yeah. So again, I'm not an expert in this area, but this is just something started. As a clinician who work in India. This is a patient who has to see. He's a 22-year young male. He's an IT graduate. Unfortunately, he got into cannabis, marijuana addiction, and solvent. Along with that, he looks like have a major psychiatric illnesses, might be bipolar or schizophrenia. Now, the unfortunate part of the whole thing is that he has to travel 1,175 miles to meet us in our team. Not that he is also staged in city. But for that process, family has to get resources. Remember, in India, the expenditure from out of pocket, and insurance system is not well established. So family gets him to here. Now, each time family comes, this psychopathology changes. So it is a challenge for a psychiatrist treating, because there are so many factors affecting the outcome. Not just treatment, it's travel, finance, time, flight, all sort of factor influencing outcome. And this is a common scenario. This is not unique to this case. This is exactly what happens in many developing countries. I think Professor Sagar Saxena must have looked at India, Africa. These are the current scenario. People travel miles together to meet a specialist care. So this is an outpatient, and again, working in a specialist in India is not like a specialist hospital. You have to see all patients along with these challenges. So the thought was that can a local health provider can be trained, mentored, and given the wisdom. So he at least give a mini specialist. Sometimes it's difficult to get full specialist, may not be formal education, but get a mini specialist so that he can do some care and some sort of patients continued follow up. So this is how it started, and yeah. Now, these are the data from the surveys in India. Now, 75% of patients with substance use and also mental health in general does not have access to care. Now, we are not talking about quality care here, just basic care. Also, that the advance of treatment and specialist care is meaningless if the vast majority is not getting it. If you look at 75 out of 100 has no access to care, you might have best antipsychotics, best antidepressant, best therapies at the place where I work. It's a national institute. But it's meaningless to them. Now, second part is that this is another problem. The first case, patient and family has to travel long miles and multiple times. many psychiatric conditions are, it's like non-communicable disease. It's not like one-shot treatment. You have to continued care. Many cases need both pharmacotherapy and psychosocial intervention. The travel cost is so high. Ultimately, what happens? The severity increases. You get many comorbidities. The cost increases, and the outcome becomes poorer. And last point is that because I work at a national institute, so the federal government gives money to train the healthcare providers. So people come to our center, get trained. Now after that, what happens? So they get trained, they go back to their workplace. There's no way to connect to them. When actual case comes to them, they find very difficult how we're going to manage the case. Over the time, they stop seeing the people with mental health conditions or do not know what to happen. So it does not actually change the practice. So keeping these thoughts in mind, in 2013, we thought that there is a time just the smartphones are getting popular in India at the time, and we thought that can the digital technology be used to empower remote health providers, be it a counselor, be it a, doctors, irrespective of the people, to increase access to care. These are facts. India, obviously, big country, 1.3 million, 1368 million population, and smartphone penetration at this point of time is 502 million and increasing exponentially. I mean, the challenge here is that the speed of smart internet may not be very great, but definitely there is change across the last couple of years. So the mission was very clear: to democratize the knowledge and amplify the capacity to provide the best practice care in addiction and mental health. Now, I started in addiction because that is my forte. I thought, when you work in institute, you start telling everyone who will accept those facts. They think it's extra work for me, for the faculty. So I thought, let's do for addiction. Obviously, now we expanded to many other areas. So, as Jamuna mentioned, I did spend some part of my time at ECHO, and that time these are the principles we used. So technology is an amplifier. This is the today's platform. Look, everyone is joined from all part of the country, from Australia to US, and all are in a loop. Also realize that the learning can be case-based, and none of the health providers, be it a counselor or doctors, will like to listen to didactic lectures. And nobody's patience nowadays. 10 minutes lecture is more than enough. So let them present a case from their side, and a team discuss the management. Now, last part is share the best practices. Now, the best practices is a little tricky term. Now, best practices at a university is completely different from what happens in India, they call it community health center or family health centers. They have limited resources. You may not get a psychologist to do it. So you have to blend the guidelines with wisdom to provide the best practices. So we thought that is how it should work, and we have to have some database to monitor the outcome. So this is very simple hub and spoke model. So this is the hub who is actively involved. So we have a addiction psychiatrist, a psychologist, a psychiatric nurse, a community specialist. Fortunately, NIMHANS being a national institute, we have all the specialists available here. So they are sitting at one place. Now, these are the spokes, and you can see measure it in smartphone. You can see small verticals are smartphones. So many are smartphones, and they join together from across country. And now what they do, so it happens every weekly, and they present I'll go next one. So they present the case. So they 3 days before the case comes to us, a summary of the case. It has been clearly mentioned that what do you want from us, from the hub team? You want to decide about diagnosis, want any psychological intervention. So what the health provider want from us? On that fixed day in a week, the person presents the case in that multi-point video conference. Now, the hub facilitator invites all other colleagues who joined to tell about what they will do in this case. For example, somebody has come with marijuana, young boy using marijuana, and the question to all other people who joined, that what you will do to motivate the person to quit or decrease cannabis intake. So it's more of peer-led learning. Towards the end, the hub experts compiles all the suggestions and recommend the recommendation, advise the health provider after 1 week to represent the case again, or 2 weeks to present the case again, just to ensure that they it's like do learning by doing activity rather than more of theory. It ends with a small didactic. Now, the basic difference between the telehealth, telemedicine and tele-echo, what we do, we actually took at the middle level things. The challenge for us in India to do telemedicine is your time. I mean, if I go to my outpatient and I have to see 10 patients who are come to meet me, who are a chance of doing telemedicine at all. And so we realize that this might be the better opportunity for us to do, and they can touch the life of many millions, then we directly do it. So now, as things go further, we had started adding a little bit of accreditation to this, adding mobile learning, because when you want to scale it up, you want other takers to get it, you want the other federal government to take this up, they want quality control. So that's why we started putting this stuff. So it means if some person has gone through certain stages, he get incentive financially from their local government, and that obviously money is highly motivating for everyone. So it helps them to do better. And then, yeah, so I mean, just this example, I'm not putting hard data here. Now, before we adopted digital technology, you used to train it, not that you're not doing it, but 100 in 3 years. Now we have 10,000 people, healthcare providers, counselors, psychologists, doctors, and different types are connected with us, and they're slowly getting to and seeing patients from this. Now, again, any digital innovation, the challenge is sustainability. How to take it further? Who pays for you? I mean, none of us, when we started, we are not paid for at all. It is like just some altruistic ideas. But fortunately, with current government, that somebody saw the idea, they thought it's doing good job, and the federal government funded a special center. Now it's become a digital academy, and the health minister of India told, okay, you take certain amount of money and expand it further. Following that, we have now child, and we have geriatrics and different other specialties started working it out. I will finish it up, the last slide. So last year I looked at, if one echo telemedicine champion health provider, how many lives is touching in a year? It's a completely self-report. There's no checking and stuff like that. So roughly it comes around 1,000 to 1,500 lives, specifically rural area and underserved areas. One healthcare provider or counselor is able to touch the lives of these many people. Now, we have not done study yet the quality of care given by them to the people in the ground. That we have not yet gone to that level. So in the last 5 years, this force multiplication effect actually led to a community of 10,000 connected health providers being connected and telementored by Niman Sahab, and could touch life of more than 4 lakh. And the most interesting part is this COVID. COVID has changed the whole picture. Now, because of COVID, India has a huge, almost 3 months of lockdown. So people and family could not travel. Now, what to do now? People cannot come to the hospital. Bigger cities. So these are the health providers who are connected with us. So they become like messenger for us. So they are like, they started managing cases, and the difficulty things they are connected to us. So I realized that when there is a catastrophe like this, and you don't have, there is a lockdown, and there is no transportation available at all to people to travel and stuff like that, this network actually, reach out to the many people and at least provide basic care, and at least continuation of medication, prevention of relapses. Those are the main things what you need to have. Psychotropic to be continued, stuff like that. Because lockdown is there, medical stores are closed, buses are not available. How they will go to it. Now, barrier, obviously there are many barriers. So when you one barrier is among the own colleague and staff. Now you look at the own colleagues, they think, is it possible to scale it up? I mean, it's not non-financial model. It may not be a financially viable. Why should I give my time for this? But slowly it changes. As you start doing it, it starts changing. Other barrier probably, keeping the motivation of the health providers continuation. But it's doable and possible. It's not difficult to do it. But these are the barriers. And third barrier is language. Now India has 25 languages. Now, if if your health participants speak some other language and you don't know the language, that's a big challenge we always face, but we're trying to work it out slowly. I think I have done presentation, Mona. Thank you very much.